Driving fast cars might be fun and exciting, but it's dangerous and reckless as well. Even when street or drag racing is conducted in a controlled environment and with skilled drivers behind the wheel, as featured in the reality television series Street Outlaws, the possibility of cars crashing is still high. In wanting to cross the finish line first, racers push their hot rods to the limit. Handling all that power isn't simple or easy, and so it doesn't always end well. From time to time, there will be reports of car mishaps during the filming of the show. Street racing is basically between two or more cars on a public road. It's unsanctioned and illegal, so to avoid the authorities, drivers usually do it at night or in the wee hours of the morning on an abandoned road. This was how it all began for the stars of Discovery Channel's Street Outlaws. They were regular guys from Oklahoma City, or OKC, who loved cars and racing. At first, they raced amongst themselves and made a list of the top 10 fastest on the street. Later on, people came to challenge them, or they went to other cities to do that. To gain wins, drivers modified their vehicles as soon as they could afford it to make them more powerful and so faster. The reality show became a hit, and several spin-off series made their TV debuts as well, showcasing the street racing scene in various cities. To make things more exciting, the network also launched Cash Days and Street Outlaws No Prep Kings, in which drivers from all over could race for prize money and be hailed as a champion. NHRA, the National Hot Rod Association, the biggest auto racing organization in the world, was founded in 1951 to promote sportsmanship and fellowship with an emphasis on the safety of hot rodders and spectators. They set rules and hosted drag racing events in the US and Canada, wanting gearheads and racers to get off public streets, so obviously they wouldn't condone street racing. When NHRA licensed drivers participated in Street Outlaws, the organization issued them a letter notifying them that they could lose their competition license. Big Chief from OKC was reportedly the first to share the letter on social media, and others followed suit. This became viral as people either sided with the show or the NHRA. Some believe that this was a simple case of the NHRA not wanting to be associated with street racing. There were those who recalled that back in 2007, a pro-modified racer lost control of his Corvette during a burnout exhibition, which resulted in the death of 6 spectators and injuries to 22 others. Since an NHRA decal was on the car, they were included in a civil suit. Fans defended the reality show, saying that the races were filmed on closed-off streets, with the full cooperation of local law enforcement and that the necessary precautions were in place. Flashed on the screen at the beginning of every episode was a disclaimer informing viewers that street racing was dangerous and that while the cast of the show had a decade-long experience in the sport, the featured races were conducted with safety measures in place within a controlled environment. That said, anything could still go wrong during a race. Here are some of the car crashes that the cast members have been involved in. From New Orleans, Louisiana, Lizzie Mousy went up against OKC's fastest, Ryan Martin, in his Fireball Camaro in Season 5 of No Prep Kings at the Tucson Dragway in Arizona in September 22 and crashed her 1969 Chevrolet Camaro, dubbed Bonnie. Kai Kelly and her father, Pat Mousy, an engine builder and former racer, rushed over to where she was, but it was Ryan who arrived first on the scene to check on her. Lizzie said she was not okay, but her head hurt badly because it slammed back and forth. She walked away from her car assisted by paramedics. She recalled that as soon as the light turned green, it felt like she had a good start, but at around 330 feet, the car shook a little, got loose, and ran onto the left wall. The parachute was then deployed, but the car crossed the center line and hit the concrete barrier on the other side. Lizzie said, "Still got the win, but not the way I wanted to. This is probably one of the gnarliest crashes I've dealt with in my career racing." Back in July 2021, she'd lost control of Bonnie mid-track at the Darlington Dragway in South Carolina in a No Prep Kings race against California's Brandon James, champion of the 2021 Mega Cash Days event. From a video taken of the incident, her car crossed the center line but went back to her lane only to hit the guardrail, and then a fire ignited. She said the car left hard, shook the tires, and as she pedaled, the wheels lifted. Lizzie was hospitalized for a routine evaluation but returned to the dragway to support her boyfriend, Kai. Later that day, he asked her to marry him, to which she said, "Yes, I want to marry my best friend." Kai's 1994 Camaro, nicknamed Shocker, was totally destroyed after a crash in 2022. He wasn't driving when it happened, as apparently he wanted his friend David Gates to join Team NOLA for Season 2 of America's List, as there were only 5 of them, whereas other teams had around 10. The rules at that time allowed the use of any car to get into the race, and so Kai believed that if David drove Shocker, the latter could race his way in. They tested it at night outside of filming, so it was done illegally and were in a hurry to avoid being caught by the police. so didn't walk the road to check its condition and didn't notice that there was a pond beside the road that allowed dew to settle on the area. David made a great pass, but at about 330 feet, the car kicked left, flipped end over end twice, and then rolled sideways 4 times before stopping. He walked away unharmed despite the damage that the car sustained. The Shocker had become legendary in its exploits on the street or drag strip. Without boasting, he said it made a lot of people nervous whenever it showed up because they knew they had a very slim chance of beating it. The 3rd-generation Camaro was why Kai earned a reputation for being one of the baddest on the racing circuit. In the early days of the show, he took home $16,000 from cash days and was hailed the fastest street racer in the Southeast. Kai had the Shocker for 10 years and considered it his baby, so he was heartbroken when he realized it couldn't be rebuilt. His team would take as many pieces as they could from it and incorporate them in the construction of the new car, so they would have the same genetics. Husband and wife sharing the same passion for street racing might be a good thing, but when they faced off in January 2022 for Season 2 of Street Outlaws America's List in South Texas, the race didn't end well. No one who watched the footage of what happened that night or witnessed it firsthand would have thought that either of the two would come out alive. Memphis leader JJ DeBoss was behind the wheel of the Hummingbird when fire suddenly ignited inside. He then lost control of the car, smacked onto Trisha's zip tie, and rolled over it. When her car was hit, it also caught on fire, then spiraled out of control and headed toward the production's parked rental cars. JJ managed to get out of his car and reach her quickly. She was seen crying and panicking because she was stuck inside the car that was on fire and couldn't get out on her own. When the fire was extinguished and she was extricated, she said that she was hurting everywhere. Both were taken to the hospital, but Trisha got the worst of it. While JJ suffered burns to his hands and face, she underwent surgery on both hips. It was a long road of recovery for her, but she surprised even her doctors when she walked earlier than expected. In Street Outlaws Memphis, Precious Cooper, dubbed Queen of the Streets, faced off with South Carolina's Stevie Kroom. As soon as the two took off, Stevie swerved left into her lane and almost hit her zip-tied Nova, but managed to get back to his lane only to spin around, get off track, and wreck his Mustang. As she tried to avoid a collision, Precious turned left, drove onto the gravel, and ended up flipping 7 times. She admitted to being scared as the race turned into a nightmare, but she was madder about the damage to the car. Both drivers were relatively unharmed. Before Jeff's race in 2021 against Damon Merchant, also from the 405 crew, he said, "I don't want to just make America's List. I want to go as a serious contender to win it all." He already had 2 wins prior, but needed to make a run for the top. However, that night ended badly for him. His 1957 twin-turbo Chevy spiraled out of control and crossed the center line before hitting the curb and flipping multiple times. He got out of the car on his own, but told the paramedics when they reached him that he was hurting all over and had difficulty breathing. Jeff was flown to a hospital in Tulsa. Once he recovered, he along with his wife went to his garage and was pretty broken up when he saw the extent of the damage to his vehicle. He'd crashed his car before, but nothing like this. He said,
"I don't know what we're gonna do here. I can't fix this."
And became emotional as he recalled all the blood, sweat, and tears that he and his team put into building it. Jeff was lucky to be alive, to walk away from the accident with just bumps and bruises. The car meant a lot to him, but he chose to see it as a tool that he used to do his job and reminded himself that it could be replaced. Justin Swanstrom raced against Dave Atkins at the Maple Grove Raceway in Monton, Pennsylvania for the filming of Street Outlaws No Prep Kings The Great 8. Midway through the race, Justin's car, known as Prenup, caught on fire due to a broken fuel line. Dave, who was in the right lane, lost control of his vehicle and clipped the rear quarter of Justin's car, which was already on fire, before smacking onto the guardrail. After Justin's car was hit, it spun and then ran onto the wall in the opposite lane as the parachute that Dave deployed got tangled up between them. Spectators watched as Justin got out of the car and went over the concrete barrier. He said that his face got a little hot, but other than that, he was fine. Footage of the aftermath of the crash showed Justin mad about something, and he later cleared things up as he said that it wasn't directed at the other driver because he knew what he signed up for in racing cars. Apparently, what made him lose his temper was that someone from the drag strip told him that they were tired of fixing the walls, or words to that effect. Shannon, star of Street Outlaws New Orleans, was racing his 1964 T2 Corvette, nicknamed Red Bull, when it crashed at the Gulfport Dragway during a Fat Tuesday Mardi Gras blowout in February 2020. As he neared the finish line, the front end of his car began to lift, turned sideways midair before it took flight and then took a nosedive. It erupted into flames, likely due to severed fuel lines upon impact, and then barrel rolled to a stop. It was one of the most harrowing crashes that spectators had ever seen. Reportedly, he was conscious when the paramedics reached him, and there were no obvious signs of injury, but he was brought to a hospital for a medical evaluation. Racing in Las Vegas for the filming of Street Outlaws Fastest in America in August 2022 had one fatality. The Nevada Occupational Safety and Health Administration launched a formal investigation over the death of a 41-year-old Ryan Fellows after a crash that took place in the desert near the Harry Allen Power Plant Road and North Las Vegas Boulevard. According to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, the show had a permit to film in the area, and there were deputies present at that time. It was reported that Ryan was driving a Nissan 240Z when he lost control of it as it neared the finish line and rolled several times before stopping with the car upside down. Unfortunately, no one reached him in time to extricate him from the vehicle before it was completely engulfed in flames. A Discovery Channel spokesperson told news outlets the Street Outlaws family is heartbroken by the accident that led to the tragic death of Ryan Fellows. We extend our deepest sympathy to Ryan's loved ones as they process this sudden and devastating loss. He is survived by his wife Elizabeth and two kids, 10-year-old Olivia and 18-year-old Josiah. On behalf of them, a longtime friend of Ryan named Brad Sparks created a GoFundMe page which read, "Ryan was an avid car enthusiast and was a road warrior in many ways. He was admired for tenacity and a relentless drive to overcome the challenges before him." In February 2023, TMZ reported that the Fellows family sued Lionsgate Entertainment and Warner Bros. Discovery for negligence that led to Ryan's death. Based on the documents obtained, the races were held on a 12 feet wide, rough asphalt, 55-mile-per-hour roadway in the desert, which failed to meet the safety standards for drag racing. After the tragic accident, races were moved to a 75-foot wide drag strip. People who are passionate about cars and racing live and breathe it. They know what they're getting into when they participate in a street race or a drag race. They're fully aware of the risks they take each time they make a pass on the track, as they had seen it firsthand whenever a fellow racer crashed a car during a race, but it doesn't stop any of them from getting behind the wheel and doing what they can to cross the finish line first. The rush of adrenaline sometimes results in a crash and even the death of a driver or spectators.
Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.